Hey listeners, welcome back to another out-of-world news story with Unraveled Tales. I got a text from a mystery caller who sent me a picture, and then a little mole confirmed to me that it was my wife image. Upon deeper investigation, I found that my wife of 6 years cheated on me to build her career, so I took ultimate revenge. I hope you will enjoy this. Tom was working on some new test data. It was dull and laborious, but it was the meat of all the work he and his team had put in on the test vehicle for the past month, so like it or not, he was correlating and tabulating the info for analysis. His phone chirped a text notification. He saw the screen flash but did not take notice of the sender's name. Several minutes had passed before he came to a break in the data and looked up from the monitor. He picked up his phone and looked at the notification. It was a number that wasn't logged into his contacts, and while the area code was local, he did not recognize the number. For a moment, he was going to delete it as spam, but had a second thought to just open it and see if it might be from someone on the team whose cell number he had not yet saved. He clicked on the text and the message opened on his screen. At first he was confused. Who would send him a graphic image? He read the text message. Look closely, you still have time. Bradley's 6 p.m. He read it again. He thought a moment, then chuckled slightly. Not often you get a wrong number for love, and was ready to delete it when he looked at the image again, and his heart stopped. He didn't see it at first. The tiny mole belonged to Tanya, his wife of the past 6 years. He looked again, unbelieving, searching for something to disprove what he was seeing with his own eyes. He read the note again. Bradley's was a local pub, not somewhere he and Tanya had been. It was in the next town over, but why Bradley's at 6 p.m.? Tanya was on her way to Boston. Her team was prepping a big proposal. The pitch was scheduled for Monday after lunch. The whole team was flying in today and would meet to finalize the pitch tomorrow and do a complete dress walk through on Sunday before the real thing. Tanya was one of the principals, so of course, she was there to prep. It was 5:15 p.m. She was scheduled to land in Boston at 4:30. Normally, she would call when she landed, but it was completely reasonable to assume she was caught up in getting the team and all their gear collected and headed for the hotel. He thought about calling, but decided to reply to the text first. Nothing too original, but completely expected. Who is this? How did you get this picture? Am I supposed to meet you at Bradley's? He began packing up for the day. He decided that he was going to Bradley's. He was going to get an answer one way or another. He texted Tanya, "How was the flight? I'm heading out for a bite. Give a call when you're free." He was going to keep it low-key and try to get a fix on what was happening. He was walking toward his car when his phone chirped again. Tanya, he thought, and opened his phone. The text was a reply from the mystery caller. "I'll be there, but I'm sure you will find someone more interesting than me there." Now his head was swimming. He opened maps on his phone and walked to his car at a quick pace. Bradley's was 30 minutes away. It was 5:40. He would get there shortly after 6 p.m. He had no idea how critical timing was, so he would go directly there and hope he was on time for whoever the texter thought he would find interesting. On the ride over, his phone chirped again. This time it was Tanya. "Crazy time with the team. Call you later before bed. Love you." He didn't think anything of it. Their conversation would come later. He was more interested in his meeting at Bradley's and how the texter came to have such an intimate knowledge of his wife. His heart was beating a mile a minute as he pulled into parking at 6:12. The texter never gave him a hint as to who he was looking for, so he assumed that whoever wanted to meet him here knew him and would make contact. But it was the comment about someone more interesting being there that caused him his greatest concern. The texter obviously knew some things that he didn't, and he felt like he was walking into a setup, yet couldn't think of another way of getting to the bottom of this. It was the picture that had his insides in turmoil. He trusted her completely and their love life was great. At least he thought so. But there was only one way someone would end up with a picture of his wife's, and he was going to find out in about 5 minutes, and the thought of the finality of that answer made him afraid. He stepped in and let his eyes translate to the lower lighting. Not knowing the pub or its layout, he stepped to the side of the door a moment and took in the surroundings. There was a large dining room to his front and a bar off to his left. He moved to the bar and found a seat near the end and sat down. The bartender had just finished filling an order for a well-dressed patron and walked over to Tom to take his order. He asked for draft and turned back to look at the dining area. His focus was drawn to the man that had just taken his drink order and was walking across the dining room floor to a table full of smiling people. Then he saw what the texter alluded to. Sitting at the table, accepting a drink from the well-dressed man was Tanya smiling. He was on autopilot. He stood and walked to the table where Tanya was seated. He was 2 steps away when she saw him. Her face went from an open smile to a wide-eyed look of fear. He never slowed. When Tom reached the table, he grabbed a handful of the well-dressed man's hair with his left hand. He pulled back, hard, and the well-dressed man dropped his drinks and began skidding backwards, losing his balance and shouting out in pain. As he pulled the man past him, he let go with his left hand and was ready to deliver a right cross to his face, and realized that the man's backward movement was just too fast and he was out of range, tumbling to his ass before Tom could engage him further. He took 1 step toward him and recognized him. "Don't get up, Pete," Tom said. "I mean it." The previously well-dressed Pete looked up from his drink-soaked suit in a crumpled heap at Tom's feet. He nodded and did not move or speak. Tom looked back at Tanya. The entire table had gone silent. He recognized several of the people there. They were all a part or Tanya's team and had been to his house for cookouts and get-togethers. I guess team loyalty trumps infidelity, he thought. Except for one person. Someone sitting in front of him at this moment was there and knew the truth and decided to tell him. He thought about finding out who it was, but only for a moment, then decided it wasn't worth pursuing. "I'm going home. If you expect any chance at saving our marriage, you'll come home now." She nodded and started to rise, but he held up his hand. "Better to give me a moment to leave." Before he turned to leave, he looked over at Betty Wilson, seated next to Bob Thornton. "Betty, does Bill think you are in Boston too? Bob, is that what Alice thinks?" They looked down. They couldn't meet his eyes, much less answer his question. Is the whole team is shagging? He thought. Sadly, he knew at least one of them was. Update. The drive home was automatic. He seemed surprised to find he was in his driveway before he even realized it. He let himself in, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat in the living room. He knew Bill Wilson and Alice Thornton. He didn't recognize the other 2 couples. All in all, there were 4 couples there. He debated on calling Bob or Alice. He realized he didn't want to talk and didn't know all that much. But at the same time, Betty and Bob were lying there, assess off. He decided to text them. He shot a quick note to both of them. "Just heard from Tanya. Team travel plans seem to have changed. Best call to get update." There, now they know something is up and they can choose to investigate it further, or not. At least his conscience was clear. It was about 20 minutes later when he heard the garage door opening and Tanya drive into the garage. He waited in the living room. She walked in. She seemed calm as she walked into the living room and took a seat opposite him on a sofa. He stayed quiet and waited for her to begin. He knew just being quiet was a powerful tool in any discussion. He was determined to let the silence wear on as long as it took. It didn't take long. Tanya seemed ready to burst. "It's not what you think," she began. He held up his hand for her to be quiet. "You have absolutely no idea what I think about what I saw tonight." Tom answered, "I don't want a big backstory. We're both engineers. I think you know as well as I that there is no real or objective answer to any why question. Inevitably, it's just a rationale to mitigate the bad results. So I won't even ask why. Let's start with something easier. How long? How many? How often? Do our friends know, aside from the other cheaters at the table? Am I known as your cuckold amongst your work colleagues and our friends?" "No, Tom, it's not like that at all," Tanya said. "We, the team, our travel plans got disrupted, and rather than come home and start out again tomorrow, Pete suggested we just stay in town and take a down day before we started." "I didn't see the whole team there. Where was everyone else?" Tom asked. "When we got the word, some of the team elected to stay at home one more night, then meet us at the airport tomorrow," she admitted. "But you decided to lie to me," he said. "You looked rather close to Pete. Anything going on between the star engineer and the wunderkind program manager that you would like to tell me?" "Well, for starters, Pete's all right, and he convinced the owners at Bradley's not to press charges," she said in a positive tone. His eyes opened wide in utter amazement at her sense of loyalty. "I don't give a flying duck about your boyfriend. If the dumbass didn't trip on his own feet, I would have broken his nose. The jury's still out on that, by the way," Tom said. "Let him press charges. I've spent a night in jail before. It doesn't scare me. You have to admit, it will make for compelling testimony," he said with a half smile. "Do you love him?" Tanya was quiet a moment. He could tell she was gathering her thoughts. Yes, silence was indeed a powerful tool, and his mind was working overtime to fill in the space her silence left in the conversation. Again, this did not look like it would end well. He's not my boyfriend. Absolutely nothing is going on. Yes, I should have told you about the travel plans, but it seemed so trivial whether I was in town or in Boston. It doesn't matter. You weren't expecting me, and I was still committed to the team. All we were doing was having a meal before hitting our rooms. There was no reason for you to behave like you did. He was just bringing a round of drinks. You totally embarrassed me in front of my team. She was in full-on bluster mode now, seeing if she could bluff and bully her way clear. He opened his phone and brought up the text and slid the phone across the coffee table to her. By the look on her face, he knew that she remembered about the picture and the circumstance, and knew there was no denying it. She began again, this time without the bluster. He grabbed the phone from the table and started a voice recording app and put the phone in his shirt pocket. Tom, our team is... She was searching for a word. Very tight in many ways, most of us. She started. We have a little group that meets regularly. They were all at Bradley's. We were the hard chargers carrying the bulk of the water for the proposal. You know, all the time I've been spending getting our pitch together. I don't know how it started, really. It was sometime after Pete took over as PM. We worked closely together, and I was attracted to him, and it just happened. Tanya said, No whys. He reminded her. Falling into duck doesn't just happen. Clothes have to come off first. There are lots of conscious decisions that go on. We both know that, so don't insult me, please. So, nearly 6 months. He answered one of his questions. That's when Pete signed on, right? She nodded. The team. He started again. You all... He let the thought drop without giving it a name. I mean all of you together? She nodded again. Pete said it was good for building trust and team dynamic. Is that what he said to convince you all to start a company duck crew? Now you're being crude. It's so much more than that. I feel so connected to Pete and my team, much more so than ever before. Tanya's bravado was showing itself again. He had a bad feeling that this wasn't going to work out well. Sorry to say you might be seeing some personnel changes on your team, Tom said. What have you done? Tanya gasped. Tom, telling anyone else will just destroy more lives. Leave them to their own decisions. We have to come to terms with us. Tanya, you have to know that I can't be complicit by my silence. I like Bob and Alice. Actually, I am liking them a whole lot more than I am liking Betty and Bill right now. He added, I texted them that travel plans seem to have changed. How your buddies answer their spouses and how their spouses accept those answers are entirely up to them. I can sleep with my decision. Tom, we have the most productive team in the history of Cramerica, Inc. She nearly screamed at me. And you were benefiting too, mister. Just because we had our team planning meetings Wednesdays didn't mean you missed out at all. I never cut you off. You always had access to my whenever you needed. So I ducked my team a little earlier. You never knew. So now just because you know, just because your poor ego is bruised, you want to piss away all that me and my team have accomplished? Tanya hissed. She was mad and getting madder. It was catching. Tom felt his heart rate climbing as Tanya continued her defense of her team's lurid dynamic. He was growing angrier as well. For a moment, just a moment during his drive home from Bradley's, he thought, if it was just this once with Pete, maybe he can forgive it. That thought had long since died a bloody but swift death. He didn't need to hear anymore. He didn't want to hear anymore, but she went on. No, sir, we're not going to let you get away with it. You're going to text Bob and Alice back and let them know that you heard from me and we were stuck in Atlanta, but have reservations for the morning. That's the story Betty and Bill are going to use, and you're going to back them up, so help me, she shouted. There are tens of millions riding on this deal, and your hurt feelings don't mean a duck. Send the text, then we can talk about how we manage going forward. Manage going forward? Tom shouted. There's no managing it going forward. You're leaving. Now. You and your sick team and your leader Pete can carry on as you want. We're done. I'll find an attorney this week and get it working. It's a simple 50-50 split. You keep your retirement, I'll keep mine. Tom said. But go. You have reservations in town. Use them. Head off to Boston and score another amazing win for you and your team. Tom, please send those texts. Tanya said in a much softer tone, pleading with me. If we lose Betty or Bill before the presentation, the company could lose millions. You and I, we could lose tens, maybe hundreds of thousands, in commissions and bonuses. Just think of all the places we could go with that money. Just you and I forget about this and reclaim me as yours. Please, Tom, don't let some undue concern about some random love derail us. Pete says I'm on the fast track to executive status. All I have to do is keep producing like we do for a few more years. Don't you want that for me? For you? She asked. Tanya, just leave. He just managed to say then he was hit hard in the back, and the wind was knocked out of him as he continued to the floor with a knee in his back. Don't hurt him, Tanya said. Too badly, she added. So the jury's still out on breaking my nose, huh? Pete said as he leaned down and put his face up next to mine as I lay pinned on the floor. Tanya must have a transmitter, Tom thought. So now I know whose team she's batting for. We'll see whose nose gets broken. Pete smiled. Get his ducking phone and type the ducking text for him. We don't have time for this shit. Someone yanked him up from the floor. Only one person. He intentionally played hurt, making the guy behind him exert a lot of force to bring him to his feet. That gave him some needed intel. His captor was a weak office ducker and was wheezing from the effort to get Tom to his feet. Tom was getting his breath back after being sandbagged and was getting his head back in the game. Unlike Pete and his team of manicured salespeople, Tom's team worked in the field with the 160th SOAR out of F.T. Campbell, KY. Oh, his group of engineers weren't anywhere near their league, but in spending time with the crews. While working test missions, the team were invited to work off their Pillsbury Doughboy bellies, under the tutelage of some hard-hitting workmen that were flown to missions in the aircraft his team modified just for them. If these men showed up on your doorstep, it was because they were sent there and your days on Earth had come to an end. Tom and his team built the gadgets they needed to get into, and more importantly, out of some hot places. Tom's team took pride that their mods helped accomplish the mission and brought everyone home. The guys from the 160th and their scary passengers were very appreciative of the hard work Tom's crew put in to make sure their gear worked, and the scariest guy in the group was MSGT Troy Baker. The MSGT was well known to those who lived in his world. Everyone from Boots to Bird Colonel showed him the deference he earned, shepherding his men through missions all over the world. He was well known for having never left anyone behind. This reputation was cemented forever during a mission in Colombia. MSGT Baker told the young LT platoon leader to stick her close. It was the LT's first mission, and MSGT Baker thought he was doing well for a rookie when the FARC opened up and caught their group in an ambush. They were able to fight them off, but then he looked over and saw the LT on the ground, bleeding from a head wound. He's gone top, the medic said, checking for vitals. Baker kneeled down and scooped him up into a fireman's carry. He's gone top, the medic said again. That may be, he said, but he's still coming home with us. The medic looked at him like he just lost his mind. It was still more than a 5-click hump back to the LZ through dense forest. They'd be lucky to get back with their asses. But carrying a dead guy, what was the top thinking? The MSGT read his mind. I'd do the same for you, Billy, he told the medic. Stay close in case I need you. What happened was stuff of legend. When they got back to the base, the doc met them as the helicopter set down. The medic explained to the doctor that the LT bought it. The doctor nodded his head and pulled a pen light out of his pocket. The medic watched amazed as the dead LT's pupils contracted in the harsh beam of the pen light. Care to revise your diagnosis, doctor? The doc asked the medic as they rushed the revenant LT into surgery. He was one of those guys who was ageless. He never said a lot, but when he spoke, everyone listened. He was a throwback. In the era of cheap, easy, and disposable, he was none of those. He was hand-built and unique, and he seemed to take a special shine to Tom and his team. During many of the long hours of the downtime between missions, the MSGT showed his appreciation by training Tom and the team in some basic but effective hand-to-hand defensive techniques. He told the engineers, better to know some things just in case. I know the biggest threat you're likely to face is a jammed copier or a nasty paper cut. But if you stay in this business, you will find yourself traveling to some colorful places. So now if you happen to meet one of the local colorful natives, you'll have something useful to fall back on. MSGT Baker explained to the group. But let's hope the paper cut is the scariest thing you ever have to face. Tom let his breathing get more under control and let himself slump back into his captor, allowing him to think he had Tom restrained. He was remembering more of the fighting techniques the MSGT had showed them. You might be in a position where there's not much you can do but take your beating. It sucks, but it happens. The trick to remember is that even when you're getting beat, You can still fight back. You just have to be smarter than the goober that's whacking you. Tom remembered the lesson and leaned back into his captor, passively resisting and wearing down the lone man's strength. "Give me the phone, Tom," Pete said, looking him in the eye. "Listen, now you know that I've ducked your wife." Tom held his tongue while Pete took great pleasure in humiliating him while compelling him to do his bidding. "Where is it, Tom?" he asked, then saw the outline of the phone in his shirt pocket. "Ah, there it is." He reached for it with his right hand. Tom stepped back hard with his right heel, impacting his captor's shin about midway up and dragging it down until he smashed down on his Gucci loafer-covered toes. He flexed his arms and broke his captor's hold as he yelped in pain and fell under a leg that wouldn't support his weight anymore. He saw Pete's eyes open wide in recognition. His right arm came straight out, and he rolled his shoulder as the MSGT had shown him, driving his curled fist into the center of Pete's face with maximum force. He felt bone break under his fist, and a positive fountain of blood erupted from Pete's nose as he went down to the floor as if poleaxed. He turned back to see who it was that had held him. It was Bill. He was lying on the floor crying and holding his leg. "I think you broke my foot," he whined. Tom stomped down hard on his foot, and Bill screamed in pain. "That should remove all doubt," Tom said. He turned back to see Pete on the floor, both hands up to his face and trying to struggle to his knees. He walked up next to him and put his face down next to his ear. "Looks like it was your nose that got broke, Pete, old boy. I'm just not willing to take one for the team," he said and punched him once hard in the temple. Pete went down for the count. His adrenaline was spiked and his breathing was ragged as he scanned the living room for Tanya. At that moment, he felt a hard impact to the middle of his back and base of his neck. He went down to one knee and spun to face the new attack. He looked up to see Tanya with a cast iron skillet in her hand. She missed her mark and only gave Tom a glancing blow. He rose to his feet and pulled the pan out of her hand roughly. "Tom, we can still make this work," she said. "Think of the money you'll be throwing away. I'll stop all the extra love. I'll cut them off, I promise. Just you and me like old times, Tom." He massaged the back of his head with his left hand, and he looked at her, stunned by how quickly she morphed from one Tanya to another. He thought for a minute of the alien in John Carpenter's The Thing, how it shape-shifted as each new challenge was presented. He smiled at the thought. Tanya mistook this smile as a tacit agreement to her latest entreaty and moved to hug Tom. He dropped his left hand down from his neck to hold her back. Then, after a millisecond of thought, he brought his right hand up and popped her square in the nose. Not hard enough to knock her out, but hard enough to break bone. Tanya cried and slumped to the floor. "Hurts like duck, doesn't it?" Tom asked. Eyes all teared up, can't see, can't breathe. "Works every time." "Why did you hit me?" she cried. "'Cause I could," was his reply. His phone was still on and recording. Not all of it was in his favor, but he felt he had enough to justify his responses. He quickly surveyed the room and remembered what the MSGT had told him. "Make up your mind when you can act and don't move till it's right, but once you do, commit everything and don't stop till there ain't no one moving but you." He looked around. Other than Bill whining in the corner and Tanya struggling to stop the blood flowing out of her nose, he was the only one moving. "You saved another one top," he thought. "Doesn't look like you, lover boy, and Mr. Bill are going to be in any condition to pitch on Monday. Damn the bad luck, and missing out on all those millions and big bonuses." Tom went on. "Oh well, I wonder what Art's going to say when he finds out." He was going to call 911, but waited. He knew once the police showed he would lose his chance to question Tanya, and walked over to where she was sitting. She had a dish towel pressed up to her face. Tom kneeled next to her. "Pinch the bridge of your nose with your thumb and index finger, like this," he said as he demonstrated. The adrenaline spike had ebbed, and he suddenly lost all his energy and sat down hard across from Tanya. Where had his wife gone? The Tanya he saw every day was not the same woman sitting across from him, and he wondered again how she had deceived him so thoroughly for so long. "Was it worth it?" he asked. Tanya looked at him and shook her head. "It could have been," she said. "If you would have just went along. We were so close. After Monday, I would have been on my way to the executive suites. This will set me back. I can fix it, but it will set me back." "So that was all you had in mind, making VP?" Tom said. "What about us? The cheating, the lying? Would that just continue?" "Tom, you're so naive. Pete knew that. He told me your black and white ethics and Boy Scout views would hold me back if I let them. He told me I had to break out of your control and be my own woman if I wanted to be a success. Did he tell you that before or after he made you the team dumpster? Tom asked. As if you knew the half of it, she spat. Oh, I tried to be the good girl engineer and do all those things that you said would enhance my career. Do you want to know what really works? Tom was silent. When someone decides to blow herself up sometimes, you just need to get out of the way. He was still recording. Well, I'll tell you, my loving husband, all those things you told me weren't working. I was busting butt making sure all my assignments were on time and budget, and all that got me was a few atta-girls. It wasn't until Betty took me aside that I learned what a woman really needed to do to get ahead. Trust me, ducking your way to the top works, and it's a whole lot easier and a whole lot more fun. So this has been going on even before Pete showed up? Tom asked. Oh, for a smart engineer, you can be awfully slow sometimes, Tom, she said. It was at the Christmas party the year after I joined Cramerica that I first Art's tool, and I've never looked back. Wait, you're ducking the boss too? Art Vandelay? Tom asked incredulously. Yes, Tom, Art, Pete, Bill, anyone on the team that could help me with my career. A moment later, Tanya's cell phone ringtone played, Hail to the Chief. Art? She asked into the phone. Of course, I'll put you on speaker. Tom? Art's voice came through the speaker. First, let me apologize to you. Pete's actions were a gross lapse of judgment. I can assure you the board will deal with him assertively. Thank you, Art. That is a load off my mind. Glad to see that you and the board take assault and fraud so seriously. Tom, these are all very unfortunate allegations. Lawyers will get rich, but no one really wants to rock the boat. We may pay a fine, Pete and Bill get some community service, but in the end, you will be divorced and poorer by half. Art explained in a businesslike manner. Do I hear an or in this tale, Art? Tom asked. Tanya always said you were the cleverer of the two. Still, I'm happier to have hired Tanya. Yes, Tom there most decidedly is an OR. Art went on. Tom, we, Cramerica, have displaced you in your wife's affections, and when you found out about this and questioned it, you were treated in a most shabby manner. Most shabby? Shocking, Tom chimed in. Tom, Art went on. In lieu of calling the cops, as you put it, suppose instead that we could come in agreement. I just sent a snap to Tanya's phone. Well, not me, one of my tech boys here. They tell me that they disappear after viewing. Have a peek. Perhaps that might restore some goodwill. Tanya opened the snap and turned the phone to Tom. He saw the words Bank of Grand Cayman and a number. A very large number. And when would that be deposited? Tom asked. It's already there, Tom. You have an email with the account number. This has been a very bad day for you, Tom. This may be a hard decision for you to make, and I don't discount the emotion. Tanya is a very desirable woman. Be that as it may. However, one can't take emotion to the bank, can one? One can't. Tom agreed, affecting Art's upper-crust clipped manner of speech. Cramerica will cover the costs of your divorce. You can never reconcile. I think we all recognize that. Tanya will file. She will ask for her personal belongings and her retirement. He thought a moment before replying. The one hand he could stand on principle and expose the whole sordid mess and let the chips fall. On the other hand, he could just walk away. Art had just given him 5 million reasons to do just that. Does Cramerica have a medical staff, Art? Tom asked. Yes, Tom. I believe we have some physicians on retainer. Art replied. Good, Tom said. You better load a few into a limo and send them over here to pick up your team. We are in agreement, then? Art asked. Tanya who? Tom replied. Precisely. Art agreed. Are we done, Tom? Art asked. Goodbye, Art, Tom said, and ended the call. Tom removed his phone and turned off the recording app and slipped it back into his pocket. I knew you would see it our way, Tom. We can still be friends with benefits, when this is all over. She summoned up what she thought was her most winning smile, but even her incandescent smile couldn't reverse the effects of her ruined nose. Her eyes were turning black, and the blood was crusted under her nose and dried drips down to her chin. Tom found the sight comical and allowed himself a smile. Once again, Tanya misread his smile for agreement and leaned in to kiss him. Tom put his right hand out to stop her. He cupped her face with his hand and pushed her back until she fell with a thump onto the couch. Either I hit you too hard or not hard enough. In what world would I want to kiss you, Tanya? She looked up at him, hurt. "Take whatever you want, but have it out of here tomorrow," Tom said and walked toward the door. He stopped next to Bill. "Foot still hurt?" he asked. "Duck, yes, you bastard it." "Ducking still hurts," Bill whined. "Maybe this will take your mind off it," Tom said and kicked Bill. Bill curled up and moaned. He walked up to Pete, who had managed to sit up. Pete put his hands up to fend off Tom. "No more, Tom. I'm not going to hit you, Pete," Tom said, and Pete smiled. His smile faded the instant Tom's foot compressed the tissue that comprised Pete's testicles. He rolled back onto his side. Tom walked out. He got into his car, not sure where he was going to go, but food and shelter were high in the hierarchy of needs scale for good reason. He grabbed a burger from a takeout place and checked into a Red Roof Inn just outside of town near the freeway, and fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow. Despite aches and pains from 100, at least 100 he reckoned, different insults on his body, he woke early the next morning and pulled his aching body out of bed. He was making motel room coffee when his phone chirped, and he reached for it. It was a text from the number. He opened it immediately. "Sorry for yesterday. I can meet. TGIF at the mall, noonish. I'll wave you over to seats at the bar." "I'll be there." He texted back and poured the lukewarm brown water from coffee maker carafe to the paper cup. "Yep, I'll be there," he thought, and set up his laptop. Time for some online banking. At college, long before he had met Tanya, Tom had an econ professor that advocated having at least one offshore account for a rainy day fund. He had nothing to lose, and with his professor's help, he was soon the owner of a brand new bank account, in as chance would have it, the Caymans. It was his Duck U fund. He had started the account 10 years before, and added to it whenever he could. He was proud that he had close to $50,000 in his account. Well, his Duck U fund was about to get a major shot in the arm. Tom brought up the secure website for each bank. With his passcode and several keystrokes, he transferred the bulk of Cramerica's payment into his personal account. He left $100,000 in the original account. He took a shower, changed, and got ready to head out to meet the mystery texter. Tom walked into TGIF just after noon. As he made his way in, he saw a man wave him over. He looked to be about Tom's age, handsome, and dressed well. Tom walked towards him. "I think you sent me a text," Tom said as he sat. "I'm sorry for the way it turned out. I don't know if there was any clean way to tell you." The stranger began. "Why don't you start with who you are and your connection to Tanya?" Tom replied. "I was on the team. I left the Army after 8 years. I got wounded in action and had a long recovery and was medically discharged. I joined Cramerica about 6 months ago. I was assigned to Pete's team about 3 months ago. I was telling a friend about the job and mentioned that I was working for Tanya. When he asked for her full name, we discovered that we had a mutual friend, and he asked me to watch out for Tanya as a favor. At first, everything was great. I was welcomed warmly to the team. It didn't take long to find out why." He started. "Tanya approached me about 2 months in. She is extremely attractive and, compelling. But when I asked her about her ring, she just smiled and told me you were okay with it. I wasn't and said so. That started the deep freeze. After I turned her down, I got all the shit assignments and nothing but grief from Pete. I called our mutual friend back and told him about Tanya approaching me. He told me about you and that he thought that pimping your wife for pay seemed out of character for the man he knew. He thought there was more to it than Tanya let on and that you needed to know. Pete sent me the pic when they were trying to get me on board with the team. Kind of a prize I could expect if I went along. Let's just say that I don't agree with their methods. I guess I'm a straight arrow. I resigned yesterday and sent you the text." "Our friend?" Tom asked. "Troy Baker." "If I hadn't met Troy," he replied, then stopped a moment before he went on. "Let's just say he helped me out of a scrape when I was a green LT. I owe him a favor or two." "Don't we both?" Tom agreed. "What are you going to do?" the stranger asked. "Art kind of laid it all out for me. I could get the cops involved, and yes, Bill and Pete, and even Tanya would have some legal problems, but with his lawyers, it would all end up as a bump in the road. We made a deal. You might think I'm selling out, and maybe you're right in a way, but they stole the only thing I had that was irreplaceable. If I can't make them pay legally, well, at least I can make them pay. It won't bring Tanya back, but I think I may find she's less irreplaceable than I thought. I have a trip planned. Tell Troy thanks for everything. I won't be going back to work." "What about you?" Tom asked finally. "Well, Troy always spoke highly of Baxter Inc. Now that you're gone, They may just need another engineer. I think you'll find they do business a bit differently at Baxter. Maybe more to your liking. Challenging, but the fringe benefits won't compare to what Tanya's team was offering. Tom smiled. I think I can live with that. The stranger rose. Tom did likewise. They simply nodded to each other and left without a further word. On Monday, Tom had just checked in for his flight to Costa Rica. Tamarindo will be a nice place to decompress for a while, he thought. He was making his way towards security and saw a mailbox just up ahead. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope addressed to the DOJ, Washington, D.C. Inside was a thumb drive of the recording. They might be interested. Who knows, he thought. Maybe Art's lawyers aren't as good as he thinks. He dropped the envelope in the box and walked into the security line. Epilogue. 9 months later, Tom sat at his usual table in the cafe. Anna, lovely as always, brought him his cerveza. Thank you, dear, he said, and he raised the bottle to his lips. He had received mail. He was still holding the envelope. No return address. He wondered who had found him. He wasn't going through elaborate steps to stay hidden, but finding him in a little town on the Pacific coast of northern Costa Rica would have taken some resources not available to the ordinary guy. His first thought was Art's people had found him. He had let it sit at his house for 2 days. He was fairly certain it wasn't a bomb yet. You can't be too careful. Carlos, Tom called out to the owner of the cafe. ¿Tienes tu cuchillo? Sí, señor Tom. Tom handed over the envelope and faded back a few steps. Can never be too careful, he thought as Carlos cut open the envelope. He handed it to Tom, who thanked him. He took another pull from his beer bottle and turned the envelope over. Several sheets of paper fell onto the table. He picked up a note. Thought you would find this interesting. That was all the note said, and instead of a signature, there was a phone number. The number. Troy would have the resources to find him. He thought, I can live with that. I can live. He flipped the other piece of paper over. It was a copy of a newspaper article with a picture. The photo showed Pete, Bill, Tanya, and Betty being led out of the Cremerica building in handcuffs. The headline for the article read, 4 indicted in multi-million-dollar procurement fraud. He smiled. Maybe Art's lawyers aren't everything he thought they were. He said to himself, a habit he picked up since his Spanish was weak and English wasn't widely spoken. He liked to hear English conversation, even if it was just him talking to himself. Ana, otra cerveza, por favor, as he held up his empty bottle. Si, Mr. Tom. Gracias, Ana, he said as he accepted his beer, took a swallow, and he looked out at the deep blue Pacific. Tanya who? The end. Your support as a subscriber helps us continue creating the content you love and exploring new and exciting topics. We can't wait to share this journey with you and offer even more incredible experiences.